Have you ever been obsessed with someone? Like really, really obsessed? To the point where you can't stop thinking about them, even though you know there's no reason for you to be thinking about them in the first place. Well, according to Carl Jung, this happens because of something called a complex. You see, deep down, we all have these unconscious complexes that are driving us. And sometimes these complexes can make us act in ways that we don't even understand ourselves. For example, you might find yourself constantly attracted to people who are a certain type, like the bad boy or girl next door. Or you might find yourself avoiding certain types of people because of the way that they make you feel. These complexes can also be triggered by things that happen in our past. For example, if someone from your past, let's say an ex, starts popping up in your thoughts again, it could be because there's something unresolved between the two of you. Maybe you never got closure. Maybe you're not over them. Whatever the reason, these obsessive thoughts can be really frustrating and confusing. But now you know that there's a real psychological explanation for why this happens, and it has nothing to do with destiny or coincidence. Some people are like an echo in our minds. We try to focus on the present, on our work, on our responsibilities. But suddenly there's that thought again, that person, that moment, an unresolved conversation. It's like they've taken up residence in our heads and they won't leave. The more we try to push them away, the more they come back. When a thought persists, it's not talking about the person but what they represent. It's a call from our unconscious. It's a notification that something is unresolved. It's like a key turning in a lock that's been stuck for a long time. Why this person? Why now? Why so strongly? Often our minds don't repeat things by chance. It's trying to show us something, but we're in a hurry. We want to get rid of the thought, not listen to what it's carrying. And so the cycle continues. The more we ignore it, the more it returns. So instead of running away, the first step might be to observe. Write it down in a journal, what you feel when that person pops into your mind. Where does the thought lead you? What does it make you feel? Because it's not just about thinking, it's about feeling what the thought wants to show you. And little by little, the fog begins to clear. There is something curious about the human mind. It doesn't cling to what's resolved, but to what remains open-ended. It's as if the mind works like a tireless detective, looking for clues to understand what hasn't been understood. That silence after an intense connection, that message that never came, that look that hung in the air, all of this becomes fuel for the thought to repeat itself. It's no wonder certain people stick in our memory as if they were part of our identity. And in a way, they are, because they represent something that the psyche still hasn't been able to fully assimilate. This attachment has neurological and emotional explanations. When we experience something loaded with emotion, our brain activates the reward system, releasing dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in addictions. This makes mentally reliving that person or situation generate a sensation, however subtle, of pleasure or familiar tension. The mind then starts to look for this emotional trigger as a form of unconscious repetition. That's why we find ourselves repeating the scene, analyzing the words, inventing the outcomes. The brain is trying to solve an unfinished emotional equation. A classic example of this is when someone gets involved in an almost relationship. There was no end because technically there wasn't even an official beginning. The lack of clarity leaves the mind stuck in what could have been. And in this mental back and forth, we create a narrative so engaging that it starts to seem more real than the actual event. You know that strange feeling of anger or enchantment towards someone you barely know? Sometimes it's love at first sight. Other times, unexplained antipathy. This, most of the time, has nothing to do with the person themselves and everything to do with you. You see, we all have a tendency to project our own stuff onto others. Jung called this projection. It's when we place aspects of ourselves that we still don't recognize onto others. That's why some people provoke us so much. They touch parts of us that are still in the dark. When a thought insists on someone, it's often because we've projected an unresolved part of ourselves onto them. It could be an old neediness, repressed anger, or even a dormant talent. The mind looks at that person and sees more than who they really are. It sees what's missing in us or what we refuse to see. This explains why some people impact us so deeply. It's not about what they do, but about what they make us feel. And this reveals a hidden universe asking to be seen. When someone won't leave your head, there's usually more going on than you think. Jung said that when we meet someone who deeply marks us, they become an archetype, a symbolic character that touches something very old and deep within us. This archetype could be the hero, the victim, the rebel, even the lost lover. And that's why some people stay in our thoughts long after we've met them. Think of someone who reminds you of a father who wasn't there for you, or a mother who didn't know how to nurture. You may not have realized it, but you're seeking emotional repair that never came. The unconscious tries to make it work, and when it doesn't, the thoughts come back, insistent and searching for meaning. This is the power of archetypes. They're not just theoretical concepts, they manifest in our relationships. Someone who makes you feel protective, seductive, authoritarian, fragile. Each emotion is a clue. To understand which archetype you're dealing with, read The Hero and the Outlaw by Margaret Mark and Carol Pearson. It'll show you how archetypes shape our emotions and narratives, including our own. And in the process, you'll see the other person more clearly and understand yourself better too. What if the person you can't stop thinking about is your shadow self? Carl Jung said everything we deny in ourselves ends up hiding in the unconscious and sooner or later appears in the form of fascination, rejection, or obsession. So what attracts us to some people isn't light, it's shadow. Not the other's shadow, but our own. You see, we all have a shadow self, a part of ourselves we disown, something we judge unacceptable, dangerous. Maybe you're someone who grew up learning to be proper. You might not like someone who's wild and free, but their energy intrigues you because deep down you want to break the rules. You feel this attraction to the forbidden, but because you're not aware of it, this attraction can become an obsession. The person becomes a symbol of everything you're not allowed to be. You think of them constantly and you replay their words and actions in your head like a scratched record. But it's not about them, it's about what they represent inside of you. So what do? Start by recognizing your shadow. What do you tend to judge in others? What can't you stand? This is where your shadow lives. In the book, The Shadow Effect by Debbie Ford, she offers practical exercises to help you dive deep into this part of yourself. The goal isn't to become friends with your shadow overnight, but to recognize it, because as long as it remains hidden, it will continue to choose for you, and you'll continue to think it's destiny. But what if it's just a part of you asking to be heard? There are people who come into our lives and awaken emotions that feel out of proportion, a feeling that goes beyond the here and now. Sometimes what connects us to someone is an old wound that is still fresh. You know when a simple gesture of affection turns into an overwhelming neediness, or when criticism hits too close to home. This is because that person inadvertently triggered an unhealed wound. Think about it. What we don't resolve in our past continues to seek expression in the present. It's like an emotional boomerang that comes back to us until we integrate it. That's why some thoughts keep coming back, like a whisper that we keep ignoring. For example, someone who experienced rejection as a child may develop a deep need for acceptance. When they meet someone who sometimes comes close and sometimes pulls away, their emotional system goes into overdrive. It's as if their subconscious mind is saying, "This time I'll get what I didn't have." They become emotionally obsessed with that person, not realizing that it's a replay of old patterns. But healing from these wounds is possible. Therapies like somatic experiencing or family constellation can help you dive deep into your body and emotions to heal those wounds, or you can start an emotional diary. Ask yourself, what does this person awaken in me that is bigger than them? By understanding the patterns in your relationships, you can start to nurture the wounds that need it most. because until we heal those wounds, any touch becomes an injury, and anyone who touches it becomes a ghost. Many people believe that constantly thinking of someone is a sign of destiny. But what if it's not? What if it's just your mind playing tricks on you? You see, our minds are like magnets, attracting what we think about. So if you think of someone constantly, it's only natural that you'll start seeing them everywhere. But that doesn't mean they're meant to be with you. It could just mean that you haven't resolved the issue that connects you to them. Jung talked about synchronicity, but he also warned about the tendency to project meanings where there are only internal repetitions. In other words, what you call an invisible bond might just be the repetition of a pattern that has not yet been understood. Of course, the feeling is real. When thoughts are constant, when everything reminds you of that person, the whole world seems to conspire to bring them back. But is the world really sending you signals? Or is it your perception shaping your reality? Most people try to escape persistent thoughts, but those who truly seek freedom walk through it with lucidity. This is the journey of individuation, the heart of Carl Jung's thought. It's the process of becoming who you really are, integrating your light and shadow, reason and instinct, wound and power. It's not about eliminating obsessive thoughts, but understanding what they want to show you. Because you see, the mind doesn't shout without reason. Every insistence has an intention. It's there to make you look at yourself more deeply. In this path, the person realizes they no longer need to identify with their thoughts or emotions. What once seemed like an endless drama starts to be seen as part of a bigger scenario, an internal theater that reveals characters, desires, wounds, and forgotten talents. For example, when recognizing a pattern of emotional dependency, they no longer judge themselves, but ask, "What is this trying to teach me about my own worth?" This type of question is pure gold in the journey of integration, because instead of losing themselves in the other, they begin to find themselves in themselves. For those who want to start this process, it's worth studying authors like Jung himself, but also reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or The Hero and the Outlaw by Pearson, which helps identify personal archetypes. Another essential practice is intentional silence. Set aside 10 minutes a day to just observe your thoughts without reacting, as if watching a movie. This strengthens the internal observer, the part of you that doesn't get confused with what you feel or think. And the more this part strengthens, the easier it becomes to walk to the next stage, liberation from the mental cycle. Here's how to stop thinking about someone who you don't want to think about. It's not about fighting the thoughts, because the more you resist, the more they persist. It's like trying to push a ball underwater. It just comes back up with more force. So instead, welcome the thought. Ask yourself, why is this coming up now? Which part of me is still trying to be heard? Often just that simple movement will take the power away from the thought. It loses its ability to control you and becomes just a visitor. Next, focus on other areas of your life. When your mind fixates on a person or a situation, it's a sign that there's little emotional energy circulating in other areas of your life. So reactivate your life from the outside in. Pick up a hobby you've been neglecting. Make contact with new people. Learn something that challenges your brain, like playing an instrument or studying a new language. The brain needs novelty to create new connections and dissolve old loops. A creative writing course, for example, has been shown to have a similar effect to many medications, not because it'll solve all your problems, but because it'll return you to yourself. Finally, rewrite the story in your mind. Every time the thought arises, instead of following the automatic script, create a new internal story. It might seem silly at first, but that's where the secret lies. If instead of thinking, "I can't get them out of my head," you say, "I'm learning to choose where I put my energy," you begin to rewrite the story. Use personalized affirmations like, "I free myself from what doesn't serve me," or "I connect with what helps me grow." This prepares the ground for something even more powerful, deep self-knowledge. You know, self-knowledge isn't a destination. It's an ongoing practice. It's almost like a dance between who you are and who you can still become. When someone dives into this journey, obsessive thoughts stop being villains and become messengers. The question changes from "how do I make this stop, Monique?" to "what does this want to show me about myself?" And that's where the real turning point begins. Because if the mind insists so much on someone or something, it's because there exists an unresolved blind spot, a part of identity that still needs to be looked at with truth and courage. It's in the silence of these internal investigations that the greatest answers arise. And no, this doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world or living in a cave. On the contrary, it means living in the world with more presence, knowing when an emotion is yours and when it's just projection. Jungian therapy is a powerful ally at this stage, but beyond it, tools like therapeutic writing, guided meditation, and dream analysis help to deepen the inner listening. Note, taking in the morning can reveal symbolism that your unconscious has been trying to communicate for years. And that, honestly, can change everything. The more a person knows themselves, the less they cling. What seemed like an emotional carousel spinning out of control suddenly slows down. And the question shifts from, "Why can't I forget so-and-so?" to "Why did I insist so much on someone who made me forget myself?" This shift in focus doesn't happen overnight, but it comes. It comes with study, it comes with practice, it comes with presence. And with it, a new freedom emerges, one that no longer depends on the other to exist. So now you know why someone won't leave your mind. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue repeating the same patterns? Or will you look at yourself with more depth, courage, and awareness? What you discovered here today could be the beginning of a new way of living, a life where your thoughts don't control you, but reveal you. So, reflect. What have you still not wanted to see? What inside you needs to be embraced before it can be released? Share in the comments at what moment did you most identify with what was said. Your story might inspire someone else to awaken too. And if this content touched something inside you, if it made you think differently, if it opened new windows for you, then subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and continue this journey with us. In the video that's going to appear on your screen now, you'll dive even deeper into this universe and discover how to reconnect with what really matters, you.